What's mission prep? Tell me what that's all about.
Done lost it. Thank you for joining us. It's over.
Edit this out.
We're done.
Guest today is Mike Mihalski. He's the owner and founder of Sons of Liberty Gunworks down there in Texas. And I haven't been doing intros. We quit doing the intros, but then I'm noticing without the intro of our guest, it's awkward for our guest. So I'm going to start just at least saying who you guys are.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. So how's Texas?
Man, it's great. I think we're one of the last holdouts. Down here, like, taxes are still good, property values are still good, gas prices don't suck, gun laws are pretty decent. It works. It's I like Texas. We're trying to pass constitutional carry right now. We'll see how that goes.
I thought, isn't Texas already like a open carry state? What's the difference? What's constitutional carry?
Yeah, so we are an open carry state. Constitutional carry means that you don't need to actually go through a licensing process. So you don't need to go get a permit. You don't have to, go through all that. If you can legally own a gun, you can carry it without the need for licensing or permitting.
Okay. Yeah, because here in Idaho, our gun laws are pretty decent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kevin knows more about it than I do. You have your concealed weapons and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you really don't even technically need it. But I did it.
Yeah.
Like in Alaska, I didn't need it either. I was stationed there, and I still did, just because the difference there is, like, here, you don't tell a fucking cop if you have a gun if he pulls you over.
Yeah.
In Alaska, if it's not the first thing you say, it can be a felony. Like, before
Yeah.
you say anything, I have a fucking gun in the vehicle.
I don't know. I used to, like,
Just some wild natives up there that'll shoot your ass.
if I've ever been pulled over and I did have a gun in the car, I always tell him.
Yeah, I would
just because
anyway.
I'm like, I want him to feel comfortable too. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I've always been like, hey, just so you know, there's firearms in the vehicle. But
So, like, in Texas, as soon as they run your plates, it tells the officer if you have a carry, permit. So, I mean, but I got to tell you, depending on where you're at, certain municipalities, it's like anything else. I mean, our bigger cities are pretty blue, and some departments are not, are a little bit less gun friendly. So it's probably a good idea to mention that you have a gun, just to kind of put everybody at ease, because sometimes these folks get a little jumpy.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So are you from Texas originally? Have you always lived in Texas?
Yeah, born and raised, man. I spent most of my life wanting to get out of here. I spent a little time on the West Coast, but no, man, Texas is home, and I love it, actually.
Yeah, I've only been to Texas once. I went to Austin, which is a cool city. I mean, it kind of reminds me of a bigger version of where we live here in Boise. My brother-in-law lives down there, and back when I went, that was 4 years ago. It was so clean. They didn't have a homeless problem. I guess that's changed in the past few years.
It's a little different, man. I mean, Austin's nice. It's a fun town. It's vibrant. It's active. Like, I live in San Antonio. It is none of those things, right? I mean, so it's kind of San Antonio's kind of a fat city. But Austin has changed a lot just in the last couple of years. The homeless situation, the police department there got their budget cut by 33%. So if you have a new car, you want to see how fast it can go, man, 35 down Austin, no one's pulling you over.
Yeah, it's crazy, because like I said, when I went there just a few years back, man, I was thinking, because I've never wanted to live anywhere else other than Idaho. I love it here. And I went to Austin, and I'm like, man, I could live here. This is a really cool city, because it reminds me of Boise, and the fact that, like, it doesn't take you don't have to go far to get out of the city. You can drive, and you're in hill country over there, I guess is what it's called.
Yeah. And what's cool, the reason why Texas works, and the reason why I like Austin is it's this big dot of blue in a huge sea of red, right? So, I mean, you have some of the weirdness and the creativity and some of the stuff that you associate with that, but it's still locked into a red state, so they can't just arbitrarily make crazy fucking laws,
Yeah.
So it works. It's like a good balance. how long we can keep that, I don't know, man. I think it's turning, I think the demographics are changing a little bit for the whole state. So
Yeah, Boise's pretty similar. Boise's kind of a blue dot in the middle of a big red state. I think that's good because you get a mix of people, and I think the more diversity you have somewhere is a better thing most of the time.
yeah, and we have preemption laws, right? So I mean, no matter how crazy a city goes, they can't override state law. So we still have that, insulation.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I've never been anywhere but Austin. I would like to go to some more spots in Texas, check it out. Because I've heard good things about San Antonio too.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard San Antonio is a good town, man. If you're ever down this way, you need to come check out the shop and come see what we do. We have a bar in the shop, so like, if you could get your guns, get a couple shots of tequila, it'd be good.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's I grew up with guns in the house. I grew up around them. I hunted, but that's like as far as my history with guns goes is hunting. And then you have someone on the other side of it, like Kevin, who carried them for a living and knows a lot more about them than I do. But I've been following you guys for quite a while, and the guns you guys build are fucking badass. Just the look of them is badass. The way your guns look, and I want to dig in with you on like kind of how you started your company and all that. We'll get to that, but yeah, like Kevin knows guns better than me.
Mm-hmm.
Like by 100 times, but I can look at one and be like, fuck, that looks cool. And when I see what you guys are building, that's what I think,
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. It's what I really like too about, being a Bravo 4, sniper in the Army, and then now like being a senior in the physics program. Like, oh, I know all the equations to run if I wanted to go build a round based on barrel length to create a certain muzzle velocity. Like if I wanted to go create subsonic ammunition, I know exactly which grains to go to at what grain of round, and I know I can estimate with pretty severe accuracy, like here's how quiet it's going to be if I'm shooting at 100 meters. Probably after 150 meters, it might tumble, right? But if you can get a silent fucking killing shot off at 100 meters and no one knows about it, that's awesome. Like,
hey, there's your next gun builder right here. Yeah. He's a physics major. You need any physics majors down there?
But the fact that we still fortunately live in a country you can do that. Maybe not in the future, but
we're in for a weird couple of years on that front, man. But
yeah,
so hearing what you're talking about for building ammo and that level of predictability, it's very similar to what we do in the sense that if you want a high level of predictability of performance, everything has to be the same every time. That consistency, that boring consistency, is really what sets brands apart. Like it's a truly known quantity, and so there's a lot of that crossover, and the more you can keep that formula the exact same, the more you can kind of guess what that thing's going to do over a long period of time. Over when introducing new variables to it should still overcome all that.
Yeah, that's it's cool too, like talking about just like your company in general, because right now it's got to be kind of hard for you guys with social media. That's the way to promote yourself, but nowadays with guns, it's a weird world. I mean, some pages are still up and have had no issues, but like we've had that happen with us. I was just like sharing an episode we had with a certain guest, and it was a picture of them holding a rifle, and it got taken down. I'm like, what and it said illegal activities, and I'm like, dude, this guy's on a range. He's doing nothing illegal. He owns these guns. Like, what's the illegal nature of a picture? But so like with a company like yours, how is that going for you guys?
That's my morning ritual, dude. I get up, I make a cup of coffee, and I go make sure my Instagram page is still there. That's how we live. And I've noticed it's like their algorithms have gotten a lot more sensitive over like the last month, because I've noticed posts being taken down. And look, I do this for a living. I use social media professionally to market the brand. I've been walking this tightrope for years. I know what not to say. There are certain words you don't put. There are certain things you just don't put. and we understand that, and so we don't do it. It's not like we once in a while make a mistake. Like we don't do that. And if you start noticing posts coming down, it's not because my content has changed. It's because whatever that fucking algorithm is has changed. And the problem is that there's not like a human being that oversees it. And you know what? And even if there was, I don't know if it would help. Considering the mindset of whoever's on the other end of that thing. But it's an algorithm, and they set it to certain things. And these algorithms have gotten so sophisticated that you don't even have to use the words anymore. I mean, it can pick up the image of a gun.
Yeah.
And so, I've seen people have their posts taken down because they had a poster on the wall behind them with the image of a gun, and that's tough. And it's not just social media, man. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize how hard it is to be in this industry. Like Bank of America, Chase Bank, Square, PayPal, Venmo, Google. You can't boost on social. I mean, like all of these, Salesforce, Shopify. There's all these massive, really helpful business tools that we cannot use, and we haven't been able to for years. I mean, I've had my personal bank accounts closed down that aren't even related to my business. My girlfriend got her Venmo and PayPal shut off because we have the same address, like home address. So it's tough, man. I mean, this is it's hard to do business like that.
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, when your whole business and your whole life revolves around that's what you do for a living, is you're building guns, and now guns are becoming taboo online anyways. The online thing's a weird thing, man, because it's so different than the real world. I don't think guns are that taboo in real life, and I don't think most people, even some liberal people, they like guns. And I'm sure you've dealt with that being a seller of guns. I'm sure you've sold to people who are quote unquote liberal. But
the fastest demographic for gun ownership right now are minorities, women, LGBT. I mean, the old stereotype of like Bubba out in the woods. That's long gone. I mean, like the gun owning demographic is very diverse, and it's a lot of people on the political left are arming up, and which is fine. The Second Amendment's for everyone, right? I mean, it's not my job to say who qualifies. But the point is that guns are becoming a lot more mainstream than people realize, and I think the people up in their ivory towers that run some of these social media companies, maybe they haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, they're
not in touch with reality anyway.
Yeah,
and I say fuck them anyway because I haven't. Let me think about this for a second. Nope, sorry, I had to compute. None of them have life experience. What I would have considered life experience, what John Moss would consider life experience, right? Or anybody like you. These guys go from high school to college right into what the fuck they're doing. Where have they really struggled? Financially struggling when you're in your early 20s, who gives a fuck? Everybody does that. That's not struggle. They've never really suffered or struggled. And if they want to come at someone like me and say they have, like, cool, let's have a personal conversation and talk about your fucking struggle relative to mine or yours or somebody else's. They don't have that. They don't have that perspective. Go from there, have the ability with your ego to be malleable enough to go from what you're doing right now to go work, I don't know, a hard ass fucking construction job with maybe a bunch of guys who've had hard lives or they're felons, whatever, but they're good dudes. Go do that for a few months, get some new perspective on life. Like, oh shit, these are real people. They live in your, like I said, ivory towers. They're just so disconnected, and they try to pretend like they're not. Like, no, you are. You've had it fucking easy, right? Relative to other people, everything's relative. And I don't think donating to charities or third world countries makes them better because it's a fucking tax write-off. We live in a religion of capitalism. Everything's a fucking tax write-off. So I don't care about their money. I don't care about their political views because they're all bullshit to me. And people that are more down to earth, that have life experience. That's just my take on that.
Well, and like I said, including like the people that have gone straight from education into, say, tech or social media, networking, all that.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's just not. They haven't had real life experience, like you were just saying. That's maybe not all of them. Maybe somebody's had real life experience that works at Instagram. Who knows? Yeah. But it's not real. The shit people put on Instagram isn't real. Like we've talked about this multiple times. My personal Instagram, I put the cool shit of my life on there.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. And I think it's cool. You see some people put their down times and stuff on social media, which respect to them for doing that, but it's fake. The whole thing's fake. The best thing I think for social media, what's that?
Yeah, you're framing a very specific image, and you're kind of playing a character. That's really what it is. I mean, and I think that's why I think that's why you see some of the attitude when everybody freaked out because, and I'm not trying to get political. It's not a political statement. It's just a statement of it. It's an observation of a phenomenon. Like when people freaked out that Bernie Sanders didn't win the nomination, they thought, hey, that must have been rigged or stolen, right? Or maybe that Twitter isn't exactly a good reflection of what the voting demographic really looks like. You might have like very loud, far fringe people on one side or the other voicing opinions on Twitter, but that doesn't necessarily reflect where people in the Rust Belt, might feel, right? So yeah, there's this false reality on social media. And I gotta go. I'll tell you a step further, man. I don't know if some of these people are actually like Zuckerberg, or I don't know if these guys are ideological, or if it really comes down to like perfecting consumerism, right? I don't like most ideological people don't amass billions of dollars. Like if you're really principled, usually you live in a van down by the river. Yeah. You've taken some fucking hardline stance, and that's usually not lucrative. Whenever you see Bezos and the fucking Twitter dude and these other guys, when they're amassing billions of dollars, that's not ideology. That is streamlining and perfecting the method of consumerism.
Yeah.
And I look at stuff like fucking COVID. Like why can't we talk about this thing might have come from China or might have come from a fucking lab, or it's not as bad as you think. Well, because like the more you can freak people out, the more they stay at home, the more they fucking search and fuck around on Facebook, the more they order stuff from Amazon. And I mean, I would imagine that COVID was really good for these people, And so if you're curating that message, is it because they're ideologically one way or the other, or is it like the perfect model for forcing shit down your fucking throat for to buy,
Yeah, I think you're right. Like when it comes to these big companies like Amazon or whatever, it's consumerism. They've found a way to keep making money, and a lot of it, and they're just continuing down that path and fuck anybody who that screws over.
Yeah.
Which like guys like you, who your whole living is building and selling guns,
right?
And well, fuck that guy. He doesn't matter because we have all these other people we're making money off of, and that's
why I called it. Actually, I stole that, by the way, from when John Doherty was on, my buddy, because he called it the religion of capitalism.
Yeah,
and it's not just a blanket statement. He had a good point when he said that, because he's talked about it like off camera before about it. Like, because religion in the past, what like Roman Catholics do, they control. If you thought the world was, if you said the world was rotating around the sun, or revolving around the sun, you were burned at the stake, right? You control the way people think and their thoughts and their emotions essentially by force. Mm-hmm. That's why it's a religion. So that kind of religion. So you have that same control you see in capitalism. They're directing you one way to buy and not the other way, and you believe in it.
Yeah.
Because now you're taking a stance against guns and for something else, for Reese's Pieces and fucking donuts, because they're getting pushed in your face.
Yeah.
So that's why I call it is a good point to be the religion of capitalism.
Yeah.
Right.
And you curate data, and you craft opinion. The most bullshit argument that I see, or like the repeated talking piece, and it's been like this for years, is like the greed of the gun industry and like the greed of the gun lobby. And like, first of all, the NRA, which is the gun lobby, their lobbying budget is $5 million a year. If you go compare that to Big Pharma or oil and gas or teachers union, they're spending $300, $400, $500 million a year, right? That's what lobbying looks like. $5 million doesn't buy you shit in Washington. Not when you compare it to like guns are so far down the line in terms of actual lobbying dollars. It would shock most people. And I encourage people to go look it up. Go look up at Open Secret, and they publish all donations made to everything and every lobbying contribution. Another thing too, man, is like the gun industry is like one of the last bastions of our grandparents' capitalism. I mean, it's made up of the backbone of the gun industry is like smaller companies, independently owned gun shops, small manufacturers. Even the big guys in our industry, even the biggest guys in our industry, like Ruger is a publicly traded company. Okay? If you look at their capex, like $1 billion. Go compare that to Google or Facebook or Exxon. Like, when they agree to the gun industry, it's kind of it feels a little disingenuous whenever it's Mike Bloomberg saying that, and he has more money than the entire industry combined.
Yeah, and then you get like to the side where things like social media aren't completely bad, because that's how I found your company, was on social media. I've heard about you guys for quite a few years, and a lot of that has to do with a lot of the guys I follow. You're involved with things like that, but that's how I found out about you, was through social media, and also podcasting, which podcasting is kind of still the Wild West on most podcasts. You can talk about pretty much anything depending on where you're distributing your podcast. I know YouTube will demonetize and stuff depending on what you talk about, but like I heard you, I think it was on Wes Whitlock's podcast. You sat down with him, and I've been following that guy for years, and so I found him through social media. So social media is not all bad, but it's bad when it quote unquote censors guys like you who are just trying to make a living. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's the problem is that we've all become so dependent on it. I mean, there's really no viable alternatives right now, and we've become dependent on them. And this is how we stay in touch. This is how we get our messages out. And a lot of my libertarian friends make this fucking stupid false equivalent argument about like what about the baker that refuses the gay wedding cake? Like, well, a business should be able to refuse the right, and it's a private. No, fuck that, dude. If you don't like your baker, there's like 20 of them down the block that are truly viable alternatives that you can go use. And furthermore, like, it's not like Facebook is refusing our money or refusing to do business with us the way the baker might refuse the gay couple. A more accurate argument would be like Facebook agreeing to bake your cake and then showing up to the fucking wedding and smashing it. Okay? That's a more reasonable argument because, dude, we do pay Facebook. We pay Facebook with our content, right? That's what people are on there to watch. We pay them with their information and our data and our, them mining our behavior. So we are paying these guys, and and then they've accepted this and they've let us stand up these companies only to pull them back down. That's the equivalent of baking the cake and then this motherfucker jumping off the roof or something and smashing it, dude. But like, it's a false equivalency, and until something gets done about that, until there's some sort of antitrust type of lawsuit or something brought against big tech, man. I mean, we're in for a fucking rough time.
And there's nowhere else for, like you said, if you can't put your stuff out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any of those, where else are you supposed to go? Because
think about it like this too. Like, this gets overlooked a lot. It's not so much that they take down your page or they fucking muffle your podcast, right? What they do is they force you to self-censor. So just because they haven't pulled down my fucking page yet doesn't mean that I'm not already biting my tongue until it bleeds and I can't say the things I want to say. I can't express the things I want to express because I'm afraid that they'll pull it down. Okay, and that would be a major adjustment I'd have to make in business. So I'm self-censoring. So they're already silencing me and you and everybody else that might have a differing opinion without having to take on their page. It's a bit of a predicament.
Yeah, it's a weird world, and like nowadays that's the way you advertise is social media. That's the best way to advertise. I mean, people don't listen to radio ads anymore. Maybe podcasting is like the closest thing to that.
Yeah, but. And I know Baker was. I don't want to disagree on there because I had to think about it. I don't want to disagree and talk out of my ass.
Yeah.
So I had to like really think about it and research, because he was still on the point of the best way to market is emails.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, they do. Like, Black Rifle has nice emails. I said that, like, they do. But I don't fucking check my email. Yeah. I check my email to make sure my professors are getting back to me when I have a question. That's about it.
Well, I think in the younger generation, email.
When you say younger, but we're both in our 30s.
Yeah, but I mean, our generation and
I don't look
younger.
at my fucking email.
I only look at my email now for this podcast for business reasons,
right?
And then everything else, I just kind of push to the side.
But we check the email because it's a decent way to pass information.
Yeah.
For links for Zoom like this.
Yeah.
But it's because it's already a social norm. There's already a hegemony in place with email.
Yeah.
If there wasn't, we wouldn't take it that seriously. But since the people are already doing it, we continue to already do it. We can't just change the standard overnight, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like, who knows? Maybe something new will come along someday that will make it easier for guys like you who are trying to promote your business. But for now, it's like you said, you got to kind of self-censor and do what you can to get your business out there. Like you hopping on podcasts, I think it's huge.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I've heard you on a couple podcasts, and I think I heard you with another one. You went on the Drinking Bros podcast, and I listened to that one, and that was right about the time me and you started talking. Because when we're booking people on this podcast, like we were just saying, I see them online. That's all I know is their social media. You don't get much from that. And I think one of the best places right now to really find out about somebody, if you don't know them in person, is a podcast, because people tend to be vulnerable in a podcast. They'll talk about their life. You kind of hear a little bit more about them. And so that's what I've been doing with some of our guests, including you. I was like, well, what other podcasts has he been on? Because I also, if I don't really know you, I don't want some wacko coming on my podcast. You know what I mean? Like, I want to get on and be like, okay, I want to hear this guy actually have an open conversation with somebody else before I sit down and talk with him. And I think that was a good one that you were on, was the Drinking Bros, because they do have a big reach. But it was cool to hear you on there kind of talk about what you do, and I kind of learned a little bit about you. I'm okay, I like this guy. Let's get this going.
Yes, I want to revisit that too, like your story.
Yeah,
I know you had to eat some shit for a while.
Yeah, let's talk about, like, so how did the conception of Sons of Liberty Gunworks start? Like, what did you do before that?
Oh man, so I was a bookie.
Really?
I ran card games. I mean, all bullshit aside, man, Sons of Liberty is probably like the first honest job I've ever had. And I think people freak out. I mean, people that know me don't freak out. They're like, yeah, that fucking sounds about right. Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, I was always when I was a kid, I'd be out hunting with my dad, or we'd be out in the fields or something. And, whenever you're 5 years old and it's dark and you're in the woods, like, the idea of a lion or tiger or bear is absolutely real to you, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you're 5, that is a real possibility, And my dad kind of instilled in me, like, hey, if you have a good rifle, you are the deadliest thing in the woods. You are the apex predator. You are the scariest thing out here. If you have a good rifle and you're, and that always kind of stuck with me, like the self-reliance and that being armed gives you. And so it was a really profound thing, I guess, once that clicked. In my whole life, that was, I was a really big, gun nerd. And, I was kind of looking for direction in my life. My brother was an active duty SEAL at the time. He just retired. He spent 22 years in the teams. And he kind of sat me down and kind of gave me the idea that, hey, why don't you start a gun company? And we started looking at names that communicated the personality of what we wanted to do, which was, the founders and the spirit of revolution and the spirit of like defiance for a cause, and that was it. So like I came home from San Diego after a trip with him, and I met my business partner kind of like through a random friend, and we stood up. At the time, this is a true story, I was building guns in my garage, and I was sending like to team guys and Marines, and the ATF visited me and was like, hey fucker, like you shipped 50 guns last month to the state of Alaska alone. You need to get a license. So between like that conversation with my bro and then the ATF, I got a license, and Sons Liberty Gunworks was born, and that was 6 years ago. We I sold my car at the time, and after I paying off a few debts that I had, I had like $6,000. My business partner put up an unused building that they had on his lumberyard, and that was it 6 years ago. And just through bootstrapping, we became a national brand, one of the fastest growing gun companies in the country.
Awesome. Yeah, it's you are a big name brand, because we've booked quite a few people on this podcast, and like other people in just my regular life, I'll tell them like, hey, we got this person coming up soon, we got this person. And some of the people I've mentioned, just like the everyday person's like, oh, I've never heard of that company. Almost everybody I've mentioned Sons of Liberty Gunworks to has been like, oh fuck, I know who they are. I know their guns. So I mean, you guys are out there. People know about you, which is good.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good feeling, man. I mean, I traveled the country for work, and you walk into a gun store in a city you've never been to before, and there's your product on the wall. It's neat to see an idea that came out of your head, manifest itself like that, and then not just to exist, but our guns sell faster than the others, right? If Brownells gets 200 of our rifles in, before you can hit refresh, they're gone. And yeah, it has a lot to do with the current climate for guns, but I can tell you that our shit goes before everything else, and that's a good feeling.
Yeah,
you're doing something right. And we never spent a penny on marketing, man.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I've noticed in the last 10 years there's been a huge shift in not only guns, but in guns, like for instance, like before 10 years ago, I may go look at POF or GA Precision for something. And in the last 10 years, I'm like snooping around you guys. I'm snooping around like Battle Arms development out of like Henderson, Nevada. Guys like that. Like, you guys just produce cool shit that you can tell there's passion in it. It's not just vanilla. It's not, hey, we made a piston operated version that fails half the time. Cool POF, thanks. Like, not to badmouth anybody. It's just like, but when you guys, I feel like you guys, like Battle Arms, you have quality control. And you have a great product. The product looks cool. There's originality in it, versus just going to the big companies. These big companies are just they're not really moving forward, because it's almost like it's just too big. Maybe there's not someone in charge of it with maybe that imagination. I don't know.
Well, and also like your guys's your warranty program I've heard of.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty like I saw what you posted the other day of the house fire that ruined guns, and I guess talk a little bit about that, because I've never heard of anybody doing what you guys do like that.
Yeah, so we're a forever brand. I mean, in the sense that if you buy a Sons of Liberty rifle, I mean, 30,000 rounds from now, if you shoot that barrel out, we're going to replace the barrel. If that gun is lost, damaged, or destroyed, we're going to replace it. If you shoot somebody with that gun in a justified self-defense shooting, I will send you a loaner while that thing's in evidence. And it's kind of look, unapologetically, we build fighting guns. We build defensive guns, right? And so people kind of are surprised when I talk about like the replacement for evidence stuff. But I mean, the whole point of what we're doing is life-saving tools. And if you do, and that's just a fact, if you shoot somebody, that thing's probably going to go away for a while. And we want to stand by the customer, not just by the product. And people ask me, well, how do you afford to do that? How do you afford to replace, barrels and stuff? Well, if you're the kind of dude that shoots that hard that you can actually shoot a barrel out of an M4, then I want to keep you shooting. Whether you know it or not, you're a brand ambassador for me. You're selling a lot of guns for me, whether you know it or not. That means you're taking that many courses, you're training that hard. People probably come and ask you gun advice because you're that guy. And it behooves me to keep that fucking dude shooting. And it works out for the client, and it works out for me. And that's it. And I mean, every gun that leaves the shop has a certificate of the armorer who built it, the other secondary armorer who test fired and QC'd it. It has my signature and it has my partner's signature. And when you send a product out like that with that level of ownership, that you can actually call on the phone and ask the armorer who built it what went wrong if, God forbid, that gun were to ever fail. I mean, imagine the level of responsibility you put into every product that leaves. Your fucking name is on it,
Mm-hmm.
It's not just some box store, whatever. Not just that, dude. A lot of these gun companies, once they reach a certain size, they're run by dudes in pleated trousers and, dudes with calculators. They're not run by shooters anymore.
Okay.
They kind of lose touch with that.
That's kind of, I guess, maybe the answer to my question from earlier then. Yeah. Because I feel like there's a huge huge discrepancy between guys like you and then those guys for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, we're like, we still have company barbecues like every Friday we cook out. I mean, there's still this like small family connectivity, and that's how you maintain that. I mean, I think you can get to a size where it might be impossible to maintain that, but we're not there, and I don't think we necessarily ever really want to be. We're big enough to fulfill any order. We're big enough to fulfill any contract that we get, but we're small enough to still give a shit, and that's the intangible, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, that matters in any line of business, I think, is a customer service aspect, and the fact that you guys care what you're putting out there. You're not just piecing shit together and here we go, we're making money. You guys still care, which in any line of business is a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, you see that still with like Black Rifle Coffee. They're becoming pretty fucking big, but it seems like those guys still care about their product, and I think that's why they're successful. And I think guys like you, that's why you're going to continue to have success, because you care about what you're putting out there to people, and that's a big deal.
But Black Rifle's been a big inspiration for us. I mean, like, we're pretty close to JT. I get a lot of advice from my dude, talks to him quite a bit. And he would tell me stories about him and Matt when they were first starting out, and just like randomly like going through their emails and just calling customers, just randomly calling a customer like on a Friday night, like, like hello, like it's Matt Best, or JT, and I just, hey, how do you like your coffee? How do you like your tea? And I mean, imagine what that's like for the dude on the other end of the phone. You're like, holy fuck, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And we kind of do a lot of the same stuff. I mean, I still give out my personal cell phone number on chat rooms and on Instagram and stuff like that. So there's that accessibility that it goes a lot further than I think people realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fact. And I think also doing things like you're doing, going on podcasts, that's cool for your company, because in all reality, you probably don't have to go on podcasts. You have other ways of people knowing about you, but you're still putting your name out there through these avenues, which that's another thing like guys from Black Rifle do. They still go out and do podcasts. They're getting in touch with their base.
Right. And the way I view podcasts is I want someone to get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can talk all day about how cool each of us are, but I'd rather get to the heart of it. Like philosophically, like, who are you as a person?
Mm-hmm.
Because then people hear that and like, no, that guy's fucking cool, which you are. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I'm going to buy a gun. If you made a sale of 3 guns off this podcast alone, that's huge, because now people believe in you. They want your product. People see them with that product. They're like, yeah, I heard this guy in a podcast. He's fucking badass. He has a cool story.
Mm-hmm.
And then it keeps on exponentially growing because of something just small and genuine, you know?
Well, yeah. And like you could have came on here today and been like, I build badass rifles. I'm a badass with a rifle, blah, 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 blah. That's it. But no, you're sitting down, you're having an actual conversation, which I think for a customer base, that's important. Like, that's why I like companies like yours and like Black Rifle, because I kind of know a little bit about the people that are running it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I love podcasts, not just coming on and being a guest, but I mean, actually listening to what you guys are doing. I love what you guys are doing. And I mean, there's several podcasts that I really do follow. When I'm on road trips or whenever I can't, I'm on a flight or something, I'm usually listening to a podcast. And the reason being is because you can't bullshit that. It's not a canned answer. If you ask me a question, we have to have a conversation. It's a dialogue where you can ask follow-up questions to my answer, and I have to know what the fuck I'm talking about, or you have to be telling the truth, because you can't prepare for a random follow-up question. That's why podcasts are the most honest form of communication. Fuck Twitter and all the other stuff, and then like the long form interview. I always found it hilarious, like when you watch Fox News or CNN, and like the talking heads, like, well, thank you, Senator. Can you just? We have 15 seconds left. Can you tell us your plan with China?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, no, I mean, you have to sit down and unpack that. And then there's, again, there's follow-up questions, and there's discourse, and there's dialogue. And that's why I love that, because, I mean, you can actually really get to understand a subject. You can really get to understand a person. And you can't fake it. That podcasts are incredibly important. What you're doing, what you guys are doing, is incredibly important. So keep killing it. How did y'all come together on this? How long has this been? How long have y'all been doing it?
So we've been friends since we were kids, but
10 years old, dude.
yeah, since we were probably like 10 years old, we've gone to school together since then. And we I think we've probably told this story, but we'll tell you. So we drifted apart a little bit. Kevin went off to the military, did his own thing, traveled all over the world, all that good stuff. And we kind of drifted apart. Even when he came back home, we would just like hang out when all the guys would get together. That was it. Because we were pretty close as young kids, but we did different things in life and just kind of drifted apart, had our own families and all that good stuff. So we'd get together to watch like fights and all that. And then a few years back, we started to kind of rekindle that friendship that we had.
Probably at the gym, yeah.
Yeah, because he owned a CrossFit gym, and I was going there to work out, and we started to get closer. And actually, we were both doing Uber at the same time. We were both driving Uber on weekends to make money. And
yeah.
And we'd stop and park in a parking lot and sit and bullshit for 15 minutes. And we became real close friends again. So anyways, that kind of led to, we ended up buying homes in the same neighborhood, and our kids play together, and we've become real close. So for a couple years, I've been saying like, dude, I want to start a podcast. I'm a big podcast fan. I'm a driver for a living. So I'm in a vehicle a lot, and I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
And I also, you ask anybody that knows me, I will talk your ear off. You don't have to even know me. I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to get to know you. That's just how I am, and how I've always been. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. And Kevin, he's really good conversation if he's prompted into that conversation, but he's not going to typically start it.
No, I've never made a move on a girl either. I never made the first move.
Yeah, and he's socially awkward a little bit until when he's put into being social. He's great at it, and I've told him that forever. Like, I'm like, dude, you're great at conversation. It's just you got to get into that conversation. And me, on the other hand, I'll fucking grab someone and say, let's talk. But I've been saying for a couple of years, like, I want to start a podcast. And yeah, I could have done it by myself, but I respect Kevin. First of all, I respect his opinion on things. I like his outlook on a lot of things in life. And I was like, dude, if we got together and did this, I think it would work. First of all, because we don't agree on everything. I mean, there's stuff we disagree on too. And I think our two opinions on shit together would be all right. And especially if we're bringing on a guest to talk to, it's just a dynamic of our two personalities and our guest. And he didn't think I was really going to do this. I was saying, because I got a little more serious about just a little
August, September.
Yeah, about August last year. I was saying, dude, I'm like, let's start. It was COVID was going on and shit. And I'm like, I got to thinking, I'm like, dude, I've always wanted to do this. Like, and things like COVID, where it shuts down being able to do shit. I was like, I don't want it to be too late and not be able to do something I really want to try. I also, and I've talked about this on here before, I want my kids to see me go after shit that I want to do in life. Yeah. And something like a podcast is something I've wanted to do. And to some people that might sound stupid, but it's just one of those things I always wanted to do. And Kevin's like, yeah, dude, I'm down. But one thing maybe he didn't realize about me, if I get my mind really set to something, I'm going to fucking do it. And I'm going to find a way to do it. And so I started buying equipment. I was like, dude, because Kevin's a student right now. He doesn't have a ton of money. I don't have a ton of money. But I was like, I'll start buying the equipment. You don't worry about it. I'm going to start buying it. I just want you to come along for the ride. Because like I said, I respect his opinion on shit. And I know he can be a valuable part of this. So last September, we fired it up, man. And we had shitty microphones. We didn't know what we were doing. And we just kept going. And at first it was just like our friends we were talking to. We'd bring on people we knew. And that's kind of just over the past, 7 months now, has rolled into people like yourself who we're interested in, who we want to sit down and have a conversation with. And over this past 7 months, we've gotten better mics. We're trying to make it better every episode. So that's kind of a long story, but how long we've been doing it and why we started it. And
Yeah, short story long, dude.
yeah, that's me, man. That's another thing. If anybody knows me, they know that I will fucking drag a story out because I like detail. But
you got to make it cooler, like, dude, like the first few episodes we were naked. I mean, we
didn't have a camera, so nobody really knows.
we were doing OnlyFans, cooking naked, but
but no, and you know, with the podcast thing, like, I would love for this to be something we could both do for a living. I mean, I fucking love it. I mean, my friends since I was a kid have always told me you should be a radio DJ or some shit. And I don't want to do that, but I do have a kind of a passion for talking to people and also hearing people's stories, why they built their business, how they built their business, why they do this thing in life, the way they do it. That's where mission prep comes from. It's like the mission of life and what all led you, what prepared you for this.
And dude, what's really cool is that you become like the gatekeeper for, you know, other people's voices. I mean, like, you're providing me with the platform right now to talk about you know, the gun industry, or to talk about the history of Sons of Liberty, or to talk about you know, social, whatever that message is, whatever it is that we're talking about. You're giving me this platform to do that. And what's cool is you can invite anybody you want, man. You're beholden to nobody. There's not some network who they can't have this guy on. Like you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can give a voice to anything you want and flesh out. And dude, you might have guests on that you hate. That's great, man. But it's there's dialogue. I mean, even discourse is very productive and good dialogue.
It's important. It's important.
Yeah, it's great, man. I'm glad y'all are doing this. I'm glad to see more of my friends kind of like taking a shot at it. And I look at guys like Joe Rogan and some other dudes. Now they're like the massive gatekeeper. Now if you can get through that gate, you're reaching a lot of people. And start somewhere.
Yeah, that's a fact. And actually, I remember when I talked to you on the phone, you had told me you had met Rogan, and then I saw on your Instagram the picture of you two together. And I was like, shit, that's a picture I'm using for promotion right there. That'll catch some attention. But it's cool because doing what you do for a living has probably led you to meet some really cool people as well.
Dude, that is the coolest fucking thing. It's for the record, man. Like, I met Joe for like a brief. We sat down and we had a conversation. Like we met for a little bit. Super cool guy, super gracious dude, man. Like, he's a very polite. He's exactly what you'd expect. Like, that's the best way to put it. He's exactly what you'd expect. Like, if you go check out their situation over there, it really is. I mean, it really is Jamie and Joe, and it's a couple of dudes that happen to be putting on like one of the biggest podcasts and the biggest podcast in the world. And it's kind of neat when you think about it's like a couple of guys, and they have more reach than the entire infrastructure of like CNN, right? So it's really kind of cool. Anyways, you asked me something. What was it?
Oh, fuck me. Fuck my ass, dude. The memory and blast injuries.
When you do these interviews over a phone, you lose like your train of thought.
You really do. And also, like, we've talked about this before too with things like Zoom. It's so hard not to like cut people off and talk over each other because there's that little lag, which today I think we've done okay with. But
I remember. So I just cut you off.
Oh, no, go for it.
So now I remember. So I want to know because I'm curious as fuck, but I know it'd be good for, I guess, marketing too. Like, so to not fall into complacency and become like these other big or corporate brands, like, do you have any ideas about where you're going to move forward? Like, say your 5-year plan, right? Like, is there any way, how do you want to move forward with your weapons? Like, is it come down to design, proficiency, everything? Like, I guess, what are your goals with the firearms themselves? Like, not the social media or selling. I just mean like the design that goes into the products.
Yeah. So our mission is the incremental improvement of the platform to increase the lethality of the platform. That's, people probably cringe when I fucking say that, but like, this is what we do. We're trying to increase the lethality of the platform. Run fucking harder, further, through more adversity, to be able to endure more shit and keep functioning. And we're talking about guns that are built to fucking shoot people. I mean, that's the actual. We don't build modern sporting rifles,
Right? Yeah.
But it's the incremental improvement of the platform. And there's the one thing I fucking hate about our industry is that there's a lot of stuff that's new for the sake of being new, or it's new for the sake of being marketable, but they haven't actually improved anything. As a matter of fact, I think that a lot of our industry has taken many steps backwards because they've gotten away from the fundamentals and the actual mechanics of how these guns perform. So, instead of focusing on like the materials or the technique or, a lot of the, I'm not going to get totally gun nerd, but instead of focusing on that, you come up with some like coating, or you come up with some, a cosmetic relief cuts here or some kind of something. And you've made the gun marketable at the expense of reliability. When I go teach armorers classes, the first slide on my PowerPoint is priority number one: the fucking thing must work. Okay. And anything you do to that gun at the expense of reliability is wrong. I don't care if you're trying to make it lighter, if you're trying to make it more comfortable or faster, like all that stuff is good as long as it doesn't come at the expense of reliability. So you ask what our goal is. Our goal is to keep incrementally improving this gun. Okay. And to keep expanding like the culture of what we're doing, because it's not just about sales. I think it's about bringing people into this idea that ultimately you are responsible for your own fucking safety, and you're responsible for maintaining your way of life, whatever that may mean, right? I mean, like the whole point of the Second Amendment was to have something to defend against tyranny, right? So expanding the culture is now, we know how to build guns. We know how to build guns. And I don't see our formula radically changing because it works. And one of the things that makes us good is that we're boringly fucking predictable in how we do stuff, right? The goal now for me is to expand that culture, to bring more people into it. Even people that may disagree on other issues, if I can get them to agree on one thing, and that's fucking the natural right to self-defense, well, you've started something. You're building something. So that to me is the 5-year plan, is to, we're now at a point where I can go after some of my passion projects, right? I mean, I build defensive guns professionally, but like my passion is hunting and precision shooting, and I love bolt guns, and so we are expanding into some of that stuff, and we have the infrastructure to do that, So there's some neat projects, man, that are coming up. I'll probably come visit you guys in Idaho. Here y'all are a pretty outdoorsy state.
That's a fact.
Yeah, sorry for the long-winded answer, right?
No, man, that's what this is for.
That's what I was looking for. Like I said, I nerd out. Like I actually have a problem with doing the same thing. If someone asks me a question, but yeah, it's pretty cool. But then I'm like, well, I better go too deep into this.
Give some detail.
And I just feel like, oh God, I'm like some 70-year-old man just getting into it. But I think that's something that's gone away too. Maybe because my parents were like about 40 when I was born, right? When I talk to people, I love talking to people who are 70 and over because there's no rush in the conversation. They're actually listening to you, and you don't have to expect too much of yourself. Like, I better keep this quick-winded because people lose their attention, but I don't. So I like getting long-winded answers. I like getting them as well, because it lets me know what you're thinking. And it's just maybe a nerd thing, but no. So anyway, no, I definitely actually appreciate that answer versus like, oh, we're badass. And we know what we're doing.
Well, it's just what we were saying is instead of just coming onto a platform and saying, we plan to be the best company out there, and that's it. Like, you gave a detailed answer, and that's what people are looking for, man.
Yeah, no, it's
It's refreshing, man. It's refreshing to hear you guys say that. I have noticed that I do find myself like rushing through certain answers or trying to like wrap it up. But it is nice to talk to people that are interested in what you have to say and vice versa. It's not a series of monologues, right?
Yeah.
You're not waiting for the other fucking person's mouth to stop moving to make your point. Like you're gaining info, and you're like that exchange of ideas. It's refreshing, man. I wish there was more of that.
Yeah,
me too. Well,
because that makes me think, just even in your answer, because I know just enough about guns that I know there's more information behind that, like the real nerd stuff, how you're going to lay these weapons, and the precision of it, right? And I'm thinking about, like, I have a $400 Black Panther Arms M4 before they went, got silt bought or whatever. And I'm comparing that to your weapons, and I'm like, okay, compared to that, that's two different fucking things. You can call them both AR platforms, M4s, whatever, but the one I have is definitely not the same thing that you're making. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing to start. Okay, so look, I'll give you all guys two little tidbits, and something we teach. I teach in class, and it's also our approach to guns. And if you take this approach, you'll do well. Especially you with your background, man, being a sniper, especially this, you'll appreciate this. Every rifle begins its life as a barrel, and we build the rest of that rifle to support that barrel, right? Everything starts as a barrel, and we build the rest of the platform to support that barrel. If you accept that as a good starting point, then the next thing you do is you ask yourself, well, what task do I want to perform? What is the goal? What am I trying to achieve? And usually the task dictates the barrel you should choose, right? I mean, if you're building a home defense gun, maybe a 20-inch stainless steel barrel is not the right choice for your nightstand gun. So when you start working the equation backwards, you start coming up with pretty meaningful, purpose-built answers. And I think that's a really good approach. Another thing to realize too is that the average civilian shooter shoots about 300 fucking rounds a year over multiple range trips. So if you're buying stuff that's built for like the commercial market, you're building something that was never intended to be tested or stressed or anything like that, right? So it's not built for endurance. So if you stick to some of the brands that are more performance-based, you look at the guys that are actually going after certain contracts and doing some of that work, that means that those guns have to pass an actual schedule of fire. Like there is some testing protocol that gun must pass in order for it to be approved into some system, right? Or some pipeline. If you look at brands that do that, that's not a bad starting point either. And then look at all the people that don't pursue that stuff, and I'll tell you a little bit about what they're building. So those are a couple of approaches I think to take if you're looking for defensive guns or how to kind of start sifting through the bullshit.
Yeah.
No, I like that. That's perfect.
Yeah. Also kind of going back, like you were talking about long-winded answers and all that, and respecting a long-winded answer. Also, another thing I appreciate is how this podcast, I mean, we're putting this out there with a guest, with you, to promote what you do, but you didn't hesitate to ask us, like, why'd you guys start this? And that's cool too.
Yeah.
Like you're having an actual, it's not all just like, we're asking you question after question after question.
Right. Like you said, it's not a monologue.
It's a real fucking conversation
to each other's fucking,
Yeah. And we've talked about this on here a bunch of times. We've been really lucky with guests. Everybody's been really fucking cool. We've had some good conversations, but there has been a couple where it's like they only want to talk about themselves, which is fine. That's what this is for. We're doing this to put people's stuff out there, but it's always nice when someone like yourself, it's a back and forth. You're asking us questions. We're asking you questions. That's real nice. So I appreciate the long-winded answers and questions as well.
Yeah, but you guys are cool, like-minded fucking people, man. And I know you guys through the internet. Now we're gonna get into, we're having a conversation and we're getting to know each other. And I have no doubt that you and I, all the three of us, will probably remain friends.
Yeah, 100%.
Like-minded fucking people that are willing to talk and listen and can kind of open up, be a little bit vulnerable. Talk about shit that's not canceled, right? There's no fucking script here. It's you're kind of shooting from the hip, and there's something very honest about that. And I'm grateful, man. I really am grateful for you guys having me on.
Dude, we appreciate you coming on. And this has been a long time coming. We had a couple supposed to happen a week ago and all that shit, but I'm glad we made it happen. So I guess we can wrap up.
Yeah, just here's where I want you to whore yourself out though really quick. Obviously your Instagram, Facebook, website, anything you think of to promote yourself.
Yeah. What's all your social medias?
Yeah. So as of right now, I mean, this could change by tomorrow, dude. Fucking But as of right now, Sons of Liberty GW on Instagram, Sons of Liberty Gunworks on Facebook, of course, solgw.com is our website. We do have a Twitter account. We do have a YouTube account. I'm not super active on those platforms, man, but we're on there, and that's where we're trying to get our message out. And here's the cool thing too: we know that the demand for our product is fucking insane. So one of the things I do is I'll see where our shipping manifests are, what dealers, what distributors our stuff is shipping to, and I'll put that out to our friends and followers on social so they can kind of get ahead of it, right? Like I would rather someone who's like been a diehard supporter of ours for years get the jump on that pallet of guns than perhaps somebody that walks in off the street and doesn't really know about us and happens to get lucky. And I'm not knocking the like that person, but I'm saying if I can give our friends a heads up, fuck yeah, dude. You know, they stood by us since the very beginning, and the least I could do is try to pass some of that information back.
Yeah. That's a cool thing too, because you have people that have been supporting you since the beginning. So why not, man? They support you, you support them. That's a good dynamic to have with people.
And you have to remember too, man, right now it's the fucking Wild West where, the secondary market for our guns is insane. So there are people out there that will buy these guns for the sole purpose of throwing them back on Gunbroker and, selling them for double, right? So if I could eke out some of the scalpers and actually help some people that might actually be looking for a defensive rifle, like the entire motivation of why I do what I do, then fuck yeah, I'm gonna do it, man.
Dude, fuck yeah. Well, I mean, just from texting you the other day, I can tell like you try to support other people as well. Like I mentioned, I wanted to buy a damn t-shirt and you're like, what's your address? I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't expect that. It was cool. So like the fact that what's that?
Did it show up yet?
Not yet. I don't think so. Who knows? With all the damn packages that come through this house because of my wife, it might have. No, I don't think it showed up yet.
Well, you need text me tomorrow if it hasn't shown up. So I know that to go beat unmercifully, dude. So
hell yeah, and then that's also a good way to promote too, because I'll fucking wear that shirt right here on the podcast. People see it.
Oh yeah,
so that'll be good.
Yeah, you gotta start making some male crop tops.
Some midriffs, man. Yeah, that belly button. Yeah.
I gotta start. I was thought the other day, I was like, man, I'm gonna start wearing some crop tops and like jorts and shit.
Just show up on the podcast.
Just be obnoxious.
Cool. All right, man. Well, we do appreciate you coming on. This has been good. I want you to come back on again, maybe someday in person. Would be fucking awesome.
Dude, I would fucking love an excuse to get up there to Idaho, man. And I would love to just an excuse to just hang out with you guys.
Hell yeah. Likewise.
Yeah.